Welcome to the Not Null Podcast. I'm just an AI voice, but here are your real hosts, Kevin Doyle, Paul Bratzlavsky, and Bobby Davis.
Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss all things tech, from AI to VR, robots to flying cars, and all the weird stuff in between that we seem to come up with each week. This week I'm joined by Bobby Davis and Paul Bratzlavsky, and I'm Kevin Doyle. So coming up on this week's show, we have how to get your free money from Facebook. The UK is investing in a sovereign AI. In our Skynet Watch section, we're going to talk about the artist Grimes being okay with you using her AI voice for a fee. You got a 50-50 royalty split with her, but she's okay with it otherwise. And the new world of AI music that we're seeing pop up right before our eyes. And then finally, are gamers over 50 feeling left out? Apparently the AARP thinks so. So we're going to talk about that too. Okay, let's get into our first topic here then. How to get your free money from Facebook. So if you used Facebook between the dates of May 24th, 2007 and December 22nd, 2022, which I'm assuming all of us here did, there were multiple lawsuits filed. And those lawsuits against Facebook about data privacy type things. The Cambridge Analytica being one of them. What happened was they had a bunch of lawsuits against them. Those people then decided to group them together into a class action against Facebook. And Facebook have now agreed to settle that class action lawsuit. They settled it, admitting no wrongdoing, for $725 million. Now, that amount goes partially to legal fees, partially to administration fees, but some of it goes back to those of us who were affected, the users. So as a user, you get to submit a claim. So if you use Facebook between those dates, you get to submit a claim by August 25th, and you can get your part of the $725 million. So cool. We're all going to be millionaires, right? So
yeah, exactly.
If you've been a part of any one of these before, you'll realize you'll probably get back about $15 is my guess. I haven't done the math on this, but some of that's tend to be how they work out. So Paul, I'm going to come to you first. Have you submitted your $15 claim to Facebook for them selling all of your data to Cambridge Analytica?
No. And exactly for the same reason you just mentioned, because like how these things play out, you get like a measly check for $10, if that, maybe $1.25. It's just ridiculous. And I like how it's still work you have to do, even though like, I know they're not admitting wrong, but they did all this bad stuff. They should just automatically send everybody a check, but instead they're like, no, you have to like do this thing. You got to go through these steps. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, it's like, I'm going to go and Facebook thing, but it is kind of interesting. And I am curious, like how many people are going to take advantage of that? Because, if there's a small pool of people, it might work out for somebody.
This is the gamble.
But yeah, it is the gamble and it is the time. I'm not going to entertain that. I've done it once in my life where I was part of like some car thing settlement of like a faulty part, and I got like $1.25 back, and I was like, it's not worth it. That's my thought on that.
Bobby, you putting yours in?
No, I don't think so. I didn't use Facebook, so I don't qualify.
Yeah, you had an account though, right?
I do have an account, but I don't know if I've ever logged into it. I really never used Facebook.
I wonder if they're actually checking though. I mean,
I may not.
Think about how many users they have. That 725 million is going to get split really thin. I think they're validating everyone actually used it in that time frame. My guess is probably not.
So you're saying that you could submit fraudulent claims?
Well, hold on a minute. They do want your email address, phone number, and username for Facebook. So they are asking for some information. Okay. So maybe they are going to do some. At least you have to have an account, I'm guessing.
Right.
Here's an interesting thing. So I deleted my account, and if I use the old like username, they'll say that account doesn't exist. You have to create a new one, which is, to me, it's like, okay. But here's the thing. Like, what happens when you delete your account? Do they still sell your data to everybody else? Of course they do, right? You would imagine?
Probably. Well, actually, here's what it says right here. It says, actually, part of the thing is, if you currently have a Facebook account, you do not need to answer this question. But it says, if you're a Facebook user at any time between those dates but have since deleted your account, you have to provide the date range for which you were a member for. I don't know if that means they prorate this somehow or something, which would be stupid if they did, because I agree, it takes one incident, right, for them to sell your data. They sell it. That happened. Deleting it's a soft delete. We know we're all in software. You don't delete anything. You just remove it from view, right? Like it's never deleted. Of course, it got sold.
Yeah.
But I'm with you guys. I'm not filling out the form. I don't really care to, like, somebody can have my $15 split among the hundreds of thousands of people who do decide to fill out the form, and they can have an extra fraction of a penny. Like, I don't, like, it doesn't mean anything, does it? And they're not admitting wrongdoing just seems wrong. Like, that part, I want an apology more than the money.
Right. Mainly the lawyers make money on this stuff. There's never been a class action suit.
Well, they made it. Yeah. They made 20% of that probably.
Right. So this is what's going to happen with AI in the future. They're going to sue the models. We're getting that later, but like they're going to sue the people over everything.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say is Facebook tracking the people that filed the claim, and then in some way going to be like, oh, we know who you are. This is what we're going to do. We have these super advanced AI models. No one will see your posts again.
You've been banned.
Yeah,
shadow
exactly.
banned.
You've been shadow banned from Facebook for claiming.
All your friends will be bots and not real. It's like, it's funny.
So,
yeah, that is crazy. Yeah, I'm not going to be part of it. Like, I've done the same thing as you, Paul. I've done one before, and I got it was next to nothing. It was, you're right, less than $10 or whatever it was. It's not going to be worth doing. And you do have to take the time to go fill out the form and give them some more information. You do have to fill out your details. You have to actually give them.
They're going to sell it and make back that money.
Yeah, they're going to sell it again.
You could get this. You can actually, so the method for receiving the money, right? You can give them your bank information. You can give them your Zelle account. Come on, who's doing that? Like, hold on a minute. We sold your stuff in the first place. We'll just recollect it again. But this time, trust us with your PayPal and your banking info. God, it's all fine.
Brilliant. Whoever's responsible for that, like, super smart.
Yeah.
Like,
they'll give you direct deposit via ACH to your bank account, which means you've got to give them your bank account information. Who's doing that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of crazy. Yeah, so who knows? I wonder if we'll see any more of these from other kind of like lawsuits other these class action things have happened, because there wasn't just the Cambridge Analytica thing. There was a lot of cases around this thing with sharing of data, especially from social media. We know they have a lot of information on us, so it's just going to be an ongoing thing. And you mentioned AI being an issue as well, Chloe, with that being a future class action of some kind.
We're definitely going to be talking about these forever. I mean, I just think it's just part of the environment ingrained in America. Lawyers look for that good class action suit to retire on. So like, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, so I'm not a big fan of these just because the plaintiffs don't ever win anything.
Right.
So it's just like a useless thing. Yeah, Facebook has to pay money, but it's not to them, to the people that they damaged or whatever.
It is, but in such a fractional amount. Plus, again, I'd prefer the apology. Like, tell me you actually knew what you were doing, like that.
Yeah, probably yes and no. I mean, like they said, here's the API, and I can see them like, oh, okay, third party access and fourth party friends. I mean, that's what it was about. So if you knew, it was the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So if you knew like one person, you could like get their friends of friends of friends. I think it was down to third level, and that wasn't supposed to be possible. And so, and I guess then they generated mailing lists, I guess, with this data, if you want to vote for Trump.
Yep.
I was going to say, at least on a side note, someone interested in becoming a lawyer now understand how it works. You become a lawyer, you do these class action lawsuits, people don't get any money, you get like 20-30%, and then you retire. So there you go. Another career option.
That's how they do
it. It is. Yeah. It is definitely a
same thing happened in the tobacco suit, where we put I'm not saying cigarettes are great, but like, I don't think any smokers got any money, where they said they were deceived, or they made a intentionally product that addicted you to nicotine.
Right. Yep.
But it is what it is. So like, I'm not going to spend my time doing it.
Yep.
I'm not worried about it.
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic then. I've entitled this the UK sovereign AI, because what's happened here is basically the UK, the Prime Minister, they have a technology secretary as well. They've pledged £100 million, which is like almost $125 million, to establish this basically foundation to put together a UK-based, basically a ChatGPT for the UK, right? UK built, UK influenced, UK trained, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a government chat version of ChatGPT that's specific to the UK, because they felt like, obviously, everything that's happening right now is ChatGPT's, OpenAI's all US based. Everything's over there. They want more control over it, I think. So It's not new for the UK to be involved in AI. DeepMind is based there. If you know anything about DeepMind, they've been doing the AI stuff for years as Google's thing that's been there for a long time. There's the guys that have been training the little football playing robots, which is very cool. These little robots that they basically taught to play football, which is great. Soccer for the Americans amongst us. But it's super cool. They do a lot of stuff there. So they're not new to this kind of field. But then in addition to this, I read a couple of other stories. Russia is also making one. They announced earlier this week that they have one. Actually, their bank is making one. The biggest bank in Russia is making an AI. It's kind of crazy. It's not the government making it technically. The bank is making it. I don't know if that's for some weird reasons. I'm not sure, but they're making their own internal version of ChatGPT. China has also launched ones. They've actually launched two. Baidu has one called Ernie, and Alibaba has one called, I'm going to butcher this, Tongyi Chiwen, I think is how you say it. Probably butchered it, but yeah. So China has a couple of these things too. So my question is, I'm going to come to you, Bobby, on this one. Do you think every country is going to make its own AI? And if they are, is anybody outside the country going to use them? And or do you think we can trust them not to be biased towards what that country wants to make them do?
No, I don't think we can trust them. I think they're making them because they want to make them biased. I definitely think they wouldn't make it otherwise. I mean, he came out and said as much. He's just saying that, hey, we want to control it, train it the way we want to do the things we want. But the UK also said they were going to make it NFT, and they didn't.
They did. I was going to say that same thing. Yes, they have made promises around other technology things in the front, in some cases, and then pulled that back.
Yeah,
probably a smart move, not to make an NFT, to be honest.
They're spending 125 million. I'm not a taxpayer in the UK, but sometimes I don't think the government needs to build everything. But I understand where they feel like in a technological race that maybe AI gives them an advantage. What I would want to understand if I'm a taxpayer in the UK, if I was a taxpayer in the US and suddenly the US government said, we're building our own AI, I would want to know, before we spend $1 billion on this, because you know how it is. It says
it's 125 million times. Yeah.
But 10 years later, it's $1 billion. And what are you actually going to do with it? So, are we building AI to fly drones, or what are we doing with it? Because we don't need a US government
I agree. Why do they feel like they need to control it? Yeah. Why do they need to feel the need to control it? Why is it different than OpenAI? The only difference is the model that it's trained on, right? Is that
which
what we're
will be
saying?
the same one that OpenAI is trained on? There's only so much data on the planet, when you think about it, the scale of what they're grabbing it up in.
Yep.
So, let's say the UK one produces better JavaScript code. I don't know.
Could it though? It couldn't, could it? Because it's trained on the same data, right? It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So is it just about data control then? So is it about collecting the data of the users, and that's the reason why they would like to have control of that maybe?
I think they
just want to bake in their own bias.
Yes. And then make it do things they want it to do, like whatever that is they're doing. It probably matches something else. It can't be a chatbot for $100 million because you saw Stanford clone this thing for $600. So the models are out there. Building the chatbot shouldn't be a mystery that they have to go solve for 10 years. So I think they can definitely do this. They also have experience with DeepMind right there. There's people in the UK working for these companies. They could pull them out. But I would say it's masking something else they want to use AI for, which typically is military or surveillance.
Yeah. I agree. It's some other
money
reason
transfers,
isn't just building
banking.
a chatbot.
Yeah. And that's why Russians building the banking one. They're monitoring money. That's exactly what they're doing. So if you want to stop fraud in the US, I do think we'll have AI that looks at suspicious account reports, I know a little bit about this topic. I've been doing it for a minute, but mule accounts is the other thing that I think could be solved with AI, where we target these accounts that take money and they're always at the end of a scam somewhere.
Yep.
And so the scam leads to all of these kind of mule accounts. So I think that AI could look through a good billion transactions and figure out which of the accounts in the US are mule accounts, or which ones in Russia are mule accounts, which ones in the UK are mule accounts. So stuff like that. I think that's what it's going to be used for. But yeah, they're going to spend money on it. If it's like any other government project here in the US, it'll be over. It probably won't work great, and it'll be $1 billion. So,
yep.
If the user, when you in the US launch their healthcare site, for 600 million and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So,
and you're like, hold on a minute, isn't that just a website?
I could do it for half.
Like,
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So like,
you're right. I can do it for half, and I've still become extremely rich.
Yeah, give me a shot at it there. U.S. government. So
Yeah, government spending is an issue. Period, isn't it? It's like there's one price when you kind of spec something for the government. There's one price when it's private. It's like two kind of different things. What's your thoughts on this?
Them talking about releasing NFT just bothers me. Like they were doing it, like it was like trendy, like late to the game much. I mean, like that's what I felt about that whole announcement. Like we're making an NFT. You're like, well, that was 3 years ago. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and even then, it probably wasn't the best idea.
No, it's not a good idea. So.
Paul, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about the Giga Chat? You're going to be using the Russian version of ChatGPT anytime soon?
No way. I'm getting more trouble than I possibly would imagine. I think, though, it's kind of interesting. It's like we had the arms race during the Cold War or whatever. Now it's going to be the AI race. And I think they're like publicly announcing these programs out loud because you think if they're publicly doing this, imagine what they're doing like for the military, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they just want to say, we have our foot in the race. This is how much money we're putting. And the interesting thing about US, which is like ChatGPT, like, right, it's a private company. There's so much talk about it. Like you don't hear like anybody in US saying, oh, we're building government or military AI. But I will guarantee that there's probably some sort of version of AI, if it's already not sentient, like some Navy base where they're building. I think it's just going to be the way of the future, because like the things that you could use it for will give you the advantage if you have that technology. And that's why I kind of was like kind of laughing at this like 6 months pause, because they could all say we're going to pause, but nobody's going to pause. Nobody's going to do it. They're going to like in their basement, like continue to do like the world dominating AI. That's going to happen for sure.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no one was pausing on. I thought that was the most ridiculous statement ever. Like governments have ever not told the truth. Like, oh yeah, we'll pause. Yeah, you do it first.
we know that AI is really good at handling like large data sets, right? That's one part where it really shines. So I agree. When there's kind of military applications, a lot of that is around large data sets. Like if you wanted to find some terrorist somewhere, you could right now it's like the intelligence service is using these kind of flags and pushing this thing together, all this data, and trying to figure out like where this person is. AI could do that so much better than I think a person could. I think you feed it all of this data, it could like pinpoint somebody well. And I think they're definitely using it for those kind of purposes. There's no question.
Well, I mean, if you just think about telecommunications, text to speech, NSA already listens to every phone call in the world, but now they can index it and search it quicker.
Exactly. Now the AI is listening, and now it can trigger things even better than it could before through algorithmic things. It's using an AI algorithm. It's just going to be better. Which
the scary version is, and we know this from the TikTok stuff, like they're tracking GPS locations, all those kind of things. So like, not only they know that you said this, they also know where you said it and where you are. Based on if they're getting data from satellites or whatever that pings the GPS location, they can track you in real time. Just like the TV show 24, which we all laughed about. That's impossible. And now we're looking at it like, I don't know. that may be possible,
I would not be shocked if this isn't something they've kind of had up their sleeve for a while. That we're seeing this public like OpenAI, ChatGPT thing, but if the government and governments around the world haven't had this similar technology under wraps for a minute or two and have been using it.
And it's the traditional big governments that we talk about. I don't think like small, I don't think the Cayman Islands has an AI project, but like the big 8 do. I mean, like we all have them.
Yeah.
And if OpenAI has something, even though we live in a democracy and we're a republic, but I can guarantee that the federal government has their hands on that, and they're not going to let them make it here in the U.S. if they feel like it could be exported to their detriment. So they're all over it. It's in the U.S. military for sure, and it's eventually will make it way into banking. Banking is a little bit different. It's bifurcated. So, people that work in banking, they're kind of low tech, but eventually those kind of models where they'll call for all transactions are submitted to this AI group. It'll be a consortium so that you can look for terrorist funds or whatever, but it's really to make sure you pay more taxes, make sure, what are you buying, that kind of stuff.
I was going to actually say, I'd be curious to see if ChatGPT could come up with some sort of like valid strategy for a militaristic scenario. So I didn't obviously test it on that big scale, but I do as a sport Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so I wanted to see, could AI actually give me a competent strategy to win a match? And so it started pretty well, and that ended up like failing miserably, where if I actually applied it, I would probably not be sitting here today. But at the same time, the curiosity is, but if you make a more narrow model that understands like certain scenarios and certain strategies, like it will actually be like very useful because it could process all the different scenarios like really, really quickly and fast.
And I think that's where this is headed anyway. I've been saying this from the beginning, that the big models, and now Sam Altman's come out and said the day of the big models are done. And I don't even think there's going to be he's saying there's not a ChatGPT 5, which everyone thinks there's going to be a 5, a 6, or 7. I think there's going to be 10,000 specifically fine-tuned models that do certain things. And I think that's when, if you have one that it does code completion now, but like I think they can say, just make a model that just does code completion, and they might have just a C# one, for example, or just a Java one, or just a PHP one, and so that it could be very good at doing certain things. So.
But yeah, it's pretty cool though, the things you could do. I recently, I don't know if you ever heard, how they have like the flow diagrams that you could draw for programming. Well, they have this JavaScript library called Mermaid.js, which allows you to write those diagrams in a kind of markdown type of, it's not markdown, it's like Mermaid.js syntax. I don't know what it's called, but you're able to write out and it will render those flow charts for you. So what I did is proof of concept, I created this app where you could talk to ChatGPT about the product you want to build. And then you just ask it to like generate the flow charts for you. And because it's familiar with the Mermaid markdown or whatever it's called syntax, I'm able to get that and parse it through Mermaid.js and actually have those diagrams made. So I could either write stuff in pseudocode and generate like a flow chart or a conversation about the thing that I want to build, or actually give a code example. And so like, I see there's like so many cool use cases for AI outside of world domination.
I think in my work, the things that I'm seeing is like, people keep talking about ChatGPT as being the killer app. I think that's just the demo. I think when you get into the API is where the action is. That's where the game changer is, so that you can incorporate some of these things into something. So like, for example, I called the API today to look at a bunch of strings and says, find me the mostly duplicates, which you couldn't do that in SQL. And so like,
because it's an exact match, and this is asking for a non-exact match, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I was surprised it pulled it back. And then I sent it and said, okay, here's an array of objects, dedupe this array of objects, and then send it back to me in an array based in this rank. And it did it. And those are kind of like, that's kind of cool, because you'd have to write some other type of pattern matching to be able to do that. And this kind of just does it, which is kind of neat.
And I was talking to somebody and they said that's what it's actually really, really good at.
Right.
So if you have ideas and use cases for things like that, you could actually, make something substantial using ChatGPT. Another idea my friend had today, I had a total idea. He's like, Paul, your idea is stupid. Here's a better idea. So, whenever you make a request to an API, you get that JSON response. And so what he said, you could literally take that JSON response, and we tested out, and it worked. Send it to ChatGPT as a prompt and say, return it exactly matching the same structure of this response, but in French or in whatever language. And so it would return it in French. And what's cool, all the coding part, it was still like in English, They only translated the actual stuff that needed to be. And I was like surprised that it was able to do that.
So localization could be a lot simpler now, where you just, it can localize it, still keep it in HTML, but like just transfer it. Instead of you having to make all these localization files all over the place and trying to do it. So like, I think there's some use cases that will game change it. The thing that what I'm coming to grips with is I don't think it's going to replace developers. No. And I keep saying this to people, and people keep thinking I'm crazy, but I'm just telling you, like, the stuff that I'm working on, it takes a lot of coding to do. It's just AI is making me build things that I couldn't build before. But I'm still building a website. I'm still building this other stuff. I don't think replacing developers is really even should be the goal of AI. I mean, we're going to build things that are crazy black magic. That's what I'm excited about.
Right.
I was just going to say, because I know what the next topic is, but this idea of like It cannot create anything brand new, right? It's only able to kind of use the thing. So you still need someone with an idea and come up with interesting ways. Just like if jazz did not exist, AI would not create jazz. It just would not do it.
Right.
Correct.
And I think that even if you're owning a company, you're like, yeah, you could replace employees, but like your goal to use AI shouldn't be to replace a job. It should be make something that you can make money with. And cost cutting to me just seems like, number one, I think it's folly, but like number two, I just think that there's other things that you're going to be more powerful to do things where you have this supercomputer that you can just call with the text completion API endpoint. It's like, dang, okay, that's pretty slick. I mean, like that would take a minute to write elsewhere, or I'd have to combine a lot of stuff to do it, or I couldn't do it at all. So it's pretty neat.
It's definitely cool. So that does make a good segue into our Skynet Watch section for this week. Yeah. So a tweet from, I think yesterday, the day before, maybe, from the artist Grimes, who is a singer. Basically, she tweeted, I'll read the tweet out as a quote. It said, "I'll split 50% royalties on any successful AI-generated song that uses my voice. Same deal as I would have with any artist I collab with. Feel free to use my voice without penalty. I have no label and no legal bindings." So this is kind of in response to what we talked about last week, Paul, when you talked about the Drake and Weeknd kind of mashup, mix thing, AI thing that happened that wasn't even a real song. So last week, basically what happened after that was, after we talked about that, Universal pulled that thing down so fast, they petitioned TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify, which this thing made to Spotify, by the way, to remove the track. It was called Heart on My Sleeve. And I went to listen to it afterwards. It was pretty good. Like, it was like, wow, it's pretty good. Like, it's not bad. This is like, I could see that how this could pass. So the thing that this brings up is there is a legal gray area here, right? And there's a legal gray area because it's whether art that is created by a human, but which contains AI elements, cannot be copyrighted or can be copyrighted. So there's this like weird area. So basically last month, US Copyright Office ruled that AI-generated art, including music, can't be copyrighted, as it is not the product of human authorship. So if it can't be copyrighted and you create an AI song, what's the? Do you add? There's some weird things we're going to have to deal with here around legal issues where the law's going to like have to catch up with the technology. This is always the issue, right? But this is moving so fast now. It's just one of these crazy things. So this kind of sent me down this weird rabbit hole too. So this happened, and then I started looking at what AI music was out here. And I came across this place it's a Discord server, and it's called AI Hub. Okay, this thing only popped up, I found out afterwards, this only popped up days ago. This popped up on the 22nd, by the way. When I joined it, it had 30-something thousand people in it. I think that's almost doubled now. I did join the server because I wanted to see what was on it. Basically, this server contains voice models. So you can go on there and you can find a voice model for, let's say, Michael Jackson. And it has the voice model that has been trained on a data set. That's the other thing you can find on there are data sets. Basically, a data set for a musical artist is a 10 minutes or more of them a cappella singing, right? And for big artists, there's lots of that available because lots of this has been put out in the past. So you can easily find this. So that becomes your training set. People have then taken that training set and created models. You can just download the models now too. You don't have to you don't have to train your own model. They've already got the models there. You basically take those models, and what they're doing is they're creating new songs with these things. You pass it through this thing, and you can have it like do all kinds of stuff. So there's original songs on there, and there's cover songs on there. So for instance, I saw earlier today there was Kanye West singing Lou Reed's "Perfect Day." Would never happen in real life, and it was terrible, by the way. And then there's weird things like Brian and Stewie Griffin singing a Linkin Park song, like because they their voices are trained. They train their voices like they sang the song. But then there's some really, really interesting and like really, really good sounding ones. The Michael Jackson model that is on there, it might as well be Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And they're having him sing all kinds of stuff. So they're having him sing like Weeknd songs or like the Backstreet Boys songs or like, it's kind of crazy. It's really interesting. So Paul, I'm going to pose you this question. You've been playing with music a lot. I've seen you sent stuff on Twitter, which is really super good, by the way. I'm loving it. I've listened to them all at least a couple of times, I swear. So do you think AI music is the future? Is this a thing?
So I think like thoughts that's somewhere in the middle. Before I tell you my kind of thoughts, what I'm going to say is the music industry, the only reason they're complaining because they weren't first to do it. Once they're able to generate models to be able to, like in your case, you said Michael Jackson model, they're going to bring back like and generate new Michael Jackson albums that they want to be in control. And so this idea of Grimes that she presents says anybody could use my voice, like AI generated, for 50% royalty is kind of interesting concept because she's literally kind of going past the music industry in a sense. If you look at it behind the, and I think it's not the power for the freedom or copyright. It's who makes the money. And I think if all artists decide to get on this bandwagon and say like, hey, you could do this and you split 50-50 share and cut the music industry kind of out of the loop, I think that's smart. I have like a bunch of friends who's in the music industry, and it is like a very like cutthroat business where it is very like, it's like as an artist, yeah, you end up making money eventually, but it's very hard and you're at the, you know, the grips of the music industry. And that's why I feel like democratizing it, or whatever the word is, I don't know, and making it like open to everybody, I think will make it better. The one thing that like I'm not worried about is like AI, for instance, it can't generate something new. It's just not able to do it. It could train, like you could have a Michael Jackson voice and you could have like, you know, some country song that you train on it. When you combine those together, it's going to be Michael Jackson singing like a country song, but it's not going to be like some new version of music. So I see where this is going to go is musicians going to kind of combine elements of AI with their own personal creativity and create something new. Like for instance, I'll 100% say like the latest like new retro song that I made where I found this vocal of this artist, Nico, I forgot what her name is. I'll have to look it up. Like that only exists because I made it. It like if you could take that sample and you could pass a bunch of stuff into it, like it'll never be exactly like the thing I created. Like because like AI will only do it on pre-existing data that exists. For me, like maybe I like now to think of it, maybe like my life and the music that I listen to, that's the pre-existing, whatever. Anyway, this is going to be like terrible argument for that. But the fact that there's no song like that and nobody else will be able to reproduce it unless they heard my song first. Basically, that's the argument. And so AI will only kind of make renditions. They'll be awesome. They'll be great. But moving forward, I think like AI is definitely going to play a big part of music. I think it's going to be very interesting. But there's still going to be this need for being creative with it to be able to kind of, you know, share it. And speaking of copywriting, you look at these artists where their data was like trained and they're saying, oh, you can't say it's copy. I disagree with that. I think you should be able to be like, hey, this was trained on your art. We need to give you like either some money back if they're making money, or at least use you as reference. Like this is what it was trained on, because I've played with AI models. There's nothing like original what it creates. It might create like its own version of it, but it's still based on the data sets. Like, let me just say this. If they never provided the data, would there be art from AI art or AI music? It wouldn't. And so to me, like, you know, like people just who are in the business early, they just want to make as much money as possible. And this is where like I like Midjourney, but at the same time I disagree with like what they're doing, is because they created this tool where they're making money from off data that they trained from other artists. And now instead of me like, oh, I want, you know, a certain style of art, instead of me going to and finding that artist, I could just have Midjourney generated. And it's literally in a way stealing from it. It would be totally different if it created its own original art that doesn't exist. But anything Midjourney creates, you could kind of like trail it back or trace it back to where it came from.
Yeah, well, a lot of times in something like Midjourney, you're giving it a style. Even you're saying, "Hey, give me this person's style." So it's like, yes, it's drawing inspiration from that. I totally agree. The same with music. It needs the inspiration or the original to know what to create as a new thing, right?
Yeah, I think if you make a song that says this is Michael Jackson singing whatever, you violated copyright. Because like it sounds like Michael Jackson. And I think what artists will do, and the technology hasn't caught up. You got to realize this has happened over the last like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you bands are right now, especially famous ones. Like, so if you're the estate of Elvis or the estate of Michael Jackson, you should be training a model right now to make the official Elvis model and the official Michael Jackson model and copyright that.
Yeah.
So you can copyright the model. I believe you can. And then if you want to create new music with it, you can. No one else can. Anyone else that makes a Michael Jackson song is using original or our original work to begin with. And then our model can reproduce whatever you make. So therefore, it's Michael Jackson singing it. And therefore, they can make a new thing. And then we can make Elvis. And if you're U2, you do the same thing. Make the U2 sound or whatever that is. They have a distinct sound. And that's what was crazy. Everyone read the song, said, oh, that's The Weeknd. It's violating copyright by doing that because like that's what it is. And so the AI guys that made this didn't even try to like disguise that fact. And so they can't there's a reason people like The Weeknd. They sound a certain way.
Yeah.
I mean, like they write lyrics in a certain way. And if you mimic that, I think you're violating copyright. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form that the music industry will lose money on this thing. They will, they'll still own the copyrights. And if you're a musician, you should make a model right now. You should try to train it and then go ahead and copyright that model so that people can't steal your work. The crazy thing is, once you own the model, then you can decide what music gets made. So if someone wants to make a song, they have to pitch you the song and make sure they're not making a Hitler anthem or something, something crazy.
Right.
And you're like, no, I don't like that. But yeah, you want to make, a song for this, or they don't want to go in studio. That's the other thing they can do. They can just make something
this
they
is what
make
I think is
it.
going to be interesting.
Yeah, and then they take it on tour and play it live, which is kind of interesting, for the bands. Like it didn't take us as long to make the stuff, and we can go directly on tour and start charging for our work.
It makes me wonder for something that has like, let's say for an artist that has a massive back catalog, right? That can no longer make music. Let's take the Beatles, right? The Beatles can no longer make music. There's only two of them who are still alive. So they can't make Beatles music anymore, but they have such a massive back catalog. Could it be a thing where it's like you give AI the entire back catalog and say, and that you train all the thing in and you say like, give me a new Beatles album. And do we get a new Beatles album every year here on in that's an AI Beatles album?
I would. I mean, and then I would probably hire if I was the in charge of that estate, especially Elvis, I would hire the best Elvis impersonator ever and put him on tour. And that's what I would do. I would train the music and make the album, and then this guy mimics it and goes on tour. It doesn't sound the same, but that's what I would do.
I actually don't care about Elvis. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't either. But
and so for me, like more of Elvis, it doesn't like really help. And here's the thing with like the AI models. It's like, yeah, if you like a certain genre and they have a model, regardless if they made it themselves or they stole it, whatever, like it's more of the same. But like the thing that I like about like Spotify at the moment, like they recommend music to you. And they'll recommend similar songs, but sometimes they'll recommend something different, for you to be like to explore it and whatever. And to me, like if I watch a style of a movie or look at the same picture forever or listen to the same song, like it gets boring and repetitive. And this is like something I started noticing with Midjourney. I create lots of different like images and certain prompts. They always give me a similar thing. And like to me, it's like, well, I've already seen this before. Yeah, like the face may look different. Oh, like the shape is here, but the color, the style, it's like all the same. And so to me, like there's no like originality. And I think like even like I feel like there's going to be a point where there's going to be like saturated art produced by like AI, music produced with AI, and it's going to get to a point where it's all going to be bland, like because it can only do so much unless someone's introducing new style, new data sets to that model. And so there's still going to be that reemergence of originally generated like kind of thing. And I think like people that are going to set the trends in music, like the idea of like creating your own model, like I think it's kind of cool. And also the fact that they will get to decide like, hey, I have this idea. I'm not going to share it with the world unless I know I could make like money. And I think like it's going to like draw like up the price of what like human musician or artists do, because now they're going to be skeptical. Like someone's going to steal this style. So I'm going to keep it to myself unless I make my own model. Yeah, but I mean, I feel there's going to be a transition like that.
Yeah,
I agree.
The trendsetters will always, especially in music, will always set the bar. I mean, so like if you get the 90s with grunge music, it wasn't grunge music. The Seattle sound wasn't something until it was, and then everyone copied it. Yep. U2 is the same way. Very hard to duplicate, but like just made massive. Elvis was the same way. When the Beatles came to the US, it was insane because no one had heard that before. And like that's really what makes music. And that's why certain decades people hate, because it's like, oh, it sounds the same, hair bands in the 80s. If you've heard one, you've heard them all, like 90s pop. Yeah. Okay. How many boy bands were there? There was a lot. They all sounded really similar, but the first one, whoever it was, whether it was Backstreet Boys or whatever, you're like, okay, they were pretty good. Yeah. Beastie Boys would be one that came out early on that had a unique sound, and then people copy it and you're like, yeah, it's okay. I mean,
So
you're right. I think AI can only copy. It's going to take a human to push something forward and create something new.
Yeah. And you can make instruments. The cool thing is you can go in studio now and just kind of experiment with your sound. But I think ultimately, when you have to take that thing on tour, there's going to be real musicians playing. I don't think someone's just going to push a button, in Wimbledon Stadium in England and just go, hey, here's my AI song. You're like, go for it, So maybe DJ's the new Beatles. I don't know. So
to your point, Bobby, though, because it just reminded me, I was talking about this with my friend when I went for a walk with him, and he was telling me about the music industry. And literally, this is the pattern. There's someone that comes out and sets a trend, and then the music industry figures out how to make it into a formula where they could reproduce that success, and then they'll get tired, and now it's not cool anymore, and then they wait for that other trendsetter to come out and be like, this is the style that's going to go. And if AI can't generate anything new, then at some point it's just going to stop. Like
right.
Said,
without a human, I don't think it can. No, and exactly. I think that's the basis of copyright law anyway, says it must be made by a human anyway. And so they're saying right now, they're telling everyone, you make a song with AI, you can't copyright it. Therefore you can't monetize it. Someone else can monetize it. But, if you just copy Michael Jackson's voice, you don't have a leg to stand on. I don't care what they say. It's a brand new song. It doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah.
I was going to say, taking this, I'll go to an existential conversation, is because when I make music, I don't really feel like I created. It's like an emotion I have that I just represent with the sounds that I hear. And depending on how I feel, it's so to me, regardless of where people are, if someone says, do you believe in higher power? I'm like, regardless of where you stand. But the point is, when music comes to me, it's not something I decide. It's it's there, and I just express it through my computer or my whatever. And so it's you could make an argument it has soul, where I would love to see, when we get to a point where AI has soul and makes the music. There's an interesting show that I actually will recommend, probably better than the one I recently recommended
last week.
I think it's called American Gods. Okay. A really good show. And there's this one scene where this music student, he's practicing the piano. He's trying to compose this amazing piece, and his grandpa is listening to him because he's like, oh, it's so beautiful. I almost got it. But the boy never quite gets it. And every day the grandpa listens, the boy plays, and it just goes on forever and ever. And then one day, his grandpa hears this most amazing song, and he goes to see his son playing on the piano, and he sees that the kid's not playing it. Instead of creating it himself, he created an AI program that created it. And literally that day, the grandpa just passed away because he was this is just he couldn't take it. He couldn't deal with the fact that it was not generated by a human. And the whole point of that show is you have the old gods and the new gods, where the old gods Zeus, and then the new gods, they're all about AI and computer and technology. And it's kind of this interesting dichotomy that happens. So another interesting, probably better than the show I recommended to you. To be honest.
I've not seen that. I should watch that.
Yeah,
but I agree. I agree with you, Paul. It's the same when I pick up the guitar to play it. It's I often don't play. I don't pick it up and play I'm going to pick it up and play a song today, something that I know, a recognized song. I pick it up to kind of noodle with it, but I play in a way that I don't really think about it. It just sounds right to me, and I'll play something, and it's oh yeah, I like that. That sounds good. And then I'll play the same thing over and over and over and over again until I get kind of this thing, and it just then I'm oh, that's I like that.
Yeah, music to me, you are the vessel that it flows through. You're not the creator, even though people oh, I created this. It's you represented it to the world, but it comes to you I don't know where it comes from, but that's how I feel about it.
And I agree with music is this kind of introspective thing. It can make you cry. It triggers memory. country music makes people line dance, do things they normally wouldn't do. So
I was going to make a bad joke.
Is that where that comes from?
I was going to make a bad joke. I was going to say country music makes me turn off my radio, but
whatever. Exactly.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I like.
No, I'm with you. Not a country fan either.
I like bluegrass.
I like bluegrass too. But we have such similar tastes in music, Paul. I think.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to our last topic. Let's talk about gaming over 50. So there's a recent study by AARP. So anybody that doesn't know, AARP, what does AARP? What does it stand for? Do you know?
I used to know. I used to work for a company where we sold insurance to all the AARP members.
Hold on, I've got a look. Something retired professionals or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically a club you can join when you reach a certain age or something.
Yeah. Now you can join it at any age now. So they just want your money. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you can. Okay.
They're running commercials now. You can join at any age.
Okay. I didn't know. Yeah, the American Association of Retired Persons is what it is.
Persons. Okay.
So they decided to remove professional. I swear it was professional before.
I thought it was professional.
Now it's anybody as well.
It's anybody. We don't care.
Yeah, anybody.
So anyway, they did a recent study, I guess, of a bunch of their members. So, and that study showed that more Americans at age 50 and up play video games than ever before. It was a total of 52.4 million who are 50 years and older play games at least once a month. That's 45% of people who are over that age. 45% of people are over 50. So it broke down, though, a lot of times into most of them playing phone games and puzzle games and card games and word games and what you would imagine like an older person would play, right? I'm guessing although I guess that's more of a new thing, right? Because I would say 5 or 10 years ago, that would have also been like, wow, like grandmas aren't playing like on phone games, are they? But now they are apparently
just crushing at Candy Crush,
Exactly. Candy Crush and probably Wordle and all of these other games. You know what I mean?
My mom played Wordle. It was great.
There you go. But they also said that 70% of those people who play did not feel like games were made with them in mind. They thought that the gaming industry was kind of overlooking them. They weren't creating features that were designed to... some of the features that they said they needed were to easily onboard to a game, play consistently, and stay challenged, which I found interesting. Stay challenged, like, these games are too easy for me, man.
Well, they also wanted them easier, too. I read that article. They wanted them easier. Yeah. Too complicated.
Yeah, so it's... Exactly. So I think the onboarding process, they were kind of confused about it being like... You can see in some of those games, I could see that, So, Bobby, you play games. So do you feel underserved by the gaming industry as a 50-plus gamer?
Look, what would drive me to quit is if these things go to Bungie and these guys like, hey, we need to make more mobile games. Like, please don't make it. So I'm an avid Destiny player. I've played Call of Duty. I've played Batman Arkham and got all the Riddler trophies. I finished the day one raid as the top 11,000 teams. Okay, it was like top 11,000. That's there's 200,000 completions. So like we did pretty good. So like, I played a lot. I don't want the games to get easier or harder. I'll just quit when I can't do it anymore. But to me, the fun part is I play shooters and complicated games, Star Wars Last Jedi. I'll start playing that next week. But like, I like playing games. I don't play as much as I used to, but like, I don't think we need to listen to AARP for game design. We don't.
I agree.
This is the worst thing ever. And I don't think the over 50 crowd is literally like, make my game. Like, if everyone's a victim these days. Like, dude, if you can't rock the twin sticks or play mouse and keyboard, do something else. Go for a walk.
They're playing mobile games.
Exactly. Right it's not gaming, man.
Like, what the hell are you doing? Don't be a chump. Like, at least get an Xbox or something. Do like PlayStation, whatever.
Yeah, this study unfortunately didn't split it up because I would be interested to see how many I'm going to call them real gamers versus fake gamers. Sorry if that offends somebody, but I'm going to say there is a group here where they consider gamers like playing puzzle games and card games and word games and phone games like this thing. I don't think that's a thing. To me, it's a separate. You should consider that a separate group. I think. I'd be interested to see how many actually play Xbox, PlayStation, or PC games.
Well, they said I
think it's a bigger number than you
played
think.
Call of Duty. The 12% in the study was 12% of them played Call of Duty. I'm in that 12% range. I do shock people all the time when I'm in a Destiny Crucible match. and they hear me talk for the first time, they're like, "Are you somebody's dad?" That's what they always say. I'm like, "Well, isn't everyone?"
Somebody's, yeah. Does anybody here read a newspaper?
I mean, no.
It's like, that's why you don't play mobile games. Like, if anybody that plays mobile games, they're like newspaper readers. So it's like they didn't realize it. You know what I mean? We're past that. To me, it's the opposite. I'm like, bring like the best game to me with the best graphics right now. Like, I need a powerful PC to run it. And now I'm like, when's VR coming? When am I in my holodeck? When is that coming? Like, what the hell are people doing on their phones? Whenever I see someone play like a mobile game, I don't do this, but I want to go over there and be like, slap the game out of their hand. Be like, what are you doing? Put them on the proper gaming equipment so they could kind of feel the rush. It's like, what are you doing?
The game I want to play is an AR experience that simulates the raid experience in a Destiny. I want to do that and like jump and run and try to beat it. I want to turn my ankle, I just want to try it, like, and just to see if you could do it, even at my ripe age of 55. Like, I want to try it.
That's a great idea. I'm not laughing at your idea. I'm laughing at my idea because I'm going to, for these ARP fools, sorry, I'm just going to say as it is, I'm going to figure out a way to make money off them because, I'm going to make a VR experience where they play their mobile game.
That's it. That's it, man.
That's like, there you go. You want to play
That's amazing. You put the goggles on, it's just a phone you hold.
And then like halfway through it, full on Destiny match. And they're like, no, what the hell's happening? Like, just like surprise them. You know what I mean? Like that immersive like thing. And they freak out.
I gotta say, mobile games, I'm just not with the mobile games either. I don't play any. I have a folder. I was telling Bobby this the other day. I have a folder on my phone just called games, right? Yeah. In that folder, there are 0 games. I don't have a single one. And I subscribe to the Apple One where you get arcade with it. So you get all these cool games for it. And I just don't play any of them.
But I think that this study is also flawed in that there's already people servers in this market. That's how Candy Crush got made. I mean, like, that's who they're targeting. They're already targeting you. You're playing. These people are playing the game that you can play at this point in your life. You can't play anything else. Like, if I handed an Xbox controller to most of my friends that are my age, they can't do it. They're like, what is this?
Yeah.
How do you use your thumbs to do this? And they're like, and if you had a mouse and keyboard, forget about it. Like trying to move those two things at the same time, really hard for them.
I also wonder if it's a thing now where you're reaching an age, right, where you're basically a first generation video gamer.
I am.
Right. So it's like, I'm probably a little bit, I'm younger by a decade. So I'm a second generation. Like, I didn't play like Atari. Right? Like the first Atari, like in the arcade with like my first games that I played were like the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, that generation, and the PlayStation 1. The Commodore 64 was my first machine, but I wasn't playing like the same kind of games in it. So I consider myself a second generation gamer technically. So I think in your group, there were way less people who originally played them. So that pool kind of like is just a smaller pool. My generation has a little bit more of that pool. But again, I think even my generation is not everybody. When I was a kid, not everybody liked video games.
Right.
So, it's just like the pool's getting bigger and bigger. So as people get older and older, it's like that number's going to go up and up and up and up.
But it's so weird, like the mobile thing. I have a friend, I tell him like, oh man, I got this mod where you're able to play Cyberpunk in VR, which is like the craziest experience ever. Like I literally have a computer just so I can do that. And he's like, Paul, all you do is play video games. I don't even play that much, but he says that, right? But every time I come over his house, every time he's playing Pokemon Go on his phone, looking ridiculous. He's like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's like he does it every 3 minutes. At least I have designated time where I sit down, and I would guarantee you, like, he makes fun of me because I spend time playing video games. He's like, oh, you're a gamer. Like, don't you do work? I guarantee you the amount of time he spends playing his stupid mobile games equals to more time than I do playing like legitimate games. So, like,
I see Candy Crush, and I'm like, what are we doing, man? Like, I played Pokemon Go for like 5 minutes. I caught my first Pokemon. I'm like, it doesn't fight back. Like, what's the point of this game? Like, I want to fight I want to fight a Pokemon. That's what I want to do. Where's Pokemon at? Where is that? What's that lightning guy's name?
Playing a mobile game is like doing X's and O's on a wall for like nonstop. It's literally, that's as much as entertainment and brain cells you're working with.
So what do you guys find good about playing games? What do you find interesting about playing games? Do they help you in any way? Do you think they do help you, like mentally, or with like, I don't know, with just like agility, or like do you get anything positive out of it other than just is it a total just like mind blank, just like off to another space?
I think my reflexes still stay pretty quick. I don't think that's the main reason I do it. What I've done lately is I've become play a lot more co-op games. So I want to like play with other people and experience that joint venture together. And I like the co-op aspect of it, even if it's competitive shooters, which I can tell as I've aged a little bit, I am slower than I used to be. Like I
tried Call of Duty recently.
Yeah, I'm a little bit slower, but like and I'm not as good as I used to be. But I still enjoy playing it, and I still like, getting in the. I mean, to me, one of my best highlights of this year was playing that day one raid with those 6 dudes up until 4 a.m. when we beat it, and then when we beat it, everyone's yelling and running around the house, and those are kind of, I guess, moments that you just don't get with other kind of shared experiences. Very hard to have shared experiences.
Yeah, to me, gaming, it's like just exploring completely different realities that don't exist. And that's why I'm a big proponent of virtual reality. It's one thing like seeing a world on a 2D screen, but like you put the VR headset and you're literally in that world. And like I love, Blade Runner. And before Cyberpunk came out and before there's a mod for VR, like there's no way I could go and experience the world of Blade Runner where I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And now with technology, like I'm able to like jump into the world and kind of get a sense of what it was like being there and kind of experiencing. And to me, it's literally the experience of visiting worlds that like I would never be able to go. And this is where I get frustrated is like how many crappy VR games out there. And there's also no real good, like, just VR experiences, like a legitimate, like explore Mars, like, but really high fidelity, like where you land on Mars. Like, I don't know, like it's stuff like that. To me, it's the having to be able to do things that I could either only do in my dreams or in a video game. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's basically
I had that same, I had that exact same feeling when I played the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Yep.
On being a giant Star Wars fan, and you play that Star Wars game in VR, you have to experience it. There's because when you stand there and Darth Vader walks up to you, like it feels like you're there. It feels like you're so in it, and you have like that moment where it's like, this is everything I could have ever hoped for as a child. Like it really is. You have to experience it. It genuinely is, takes you out of your world. And then you take that headset off and you're like, oh man, I'm like right here still. I totally forget where I am. It's very, very immersive.
And I remember playing Last Jedi when Darth Vader comes out, and my immediate thought was, holy crap, he's going to cut my head off. Like, it wasn't that, how do I beat it? What are my moves or whatever like that? It was this emotional reaction like, okay, he's going to kill me. I'm going to die here.
There's this game called Fallout 4.
Yeah, Fallout.
And they have a VR version. Skyrim also have a VR version. I have so many mods in there. And one weekend, I literally played 8 hours. I don't know what happened, just 8 hours. And when I took off the headset, I freaked out because to me, after 8 hours, I got like acclimated to the fact I'm living in this virtual world. This is it. So when I took it out, saw my room, I was like, oh, where am I?
Where am I?
Yeah. But it's pretty funny though.
Yeah, it's crazy. I wonder if VR will be as popular with kind of the older gamer crowd as it will with the younger crowd too, and if that's going to be a thing. I could see it will be. Maybe not just gaming either. Maybe just VR in general could be a thing. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's fascinating to see somebody. I saw there was a video on YouTube of somebody who was like from, I don't know, I think they were from a small town in Italy or something, and it's like they'd never been back, and they were able to like put a VR headset on and go into Google Maps and Street View and kind of like look around their town. They were like absolutely blown away by it. It was like, it looked like it was life-changing to them.
Yeah. And if you could make that one step further where you could actually go there and like, that's kind of cool. Where it's not just pictures in Street View. It's more it's a 3D model that's cast upon and then you can really walk around, touch things and feel it, and get the smell right. I mean, those kind of things I think will come.
Yep. I agree. Okay, well that's it for this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. If I can ask you to do a couple of things. If you could leave us a review and a rating somewhere, that would be great. Links down in the description. Or in the show notes, depending on where you are. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the descriptions. On the show notes, if you're listening to it somewhere, that would be amazing. Link will be there. I would very much appreciate that. If you want to contact us, details are also there. We have an email address set up. You can go ahead and email us any questions, comments. If you want to say we're amazing, that'd be great. If you want to say we suck, you could say that, but I don't know.
We might even bring some guest hosts on. So if you want to guest host this episode with us,
yeah. If you're interested in coming on too, let us know.
If you've podcasted before and you want to talk about tech, I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. You see, it's pretty laid back. We're pretty easy to talk to, I think.
We only yell after the show's over.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, why did you do that?
Why'd you cut me off?
Okay, speaking of cutting off, let's roll. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.